I want to go ahead and get this started. I'm going to introduce Dr. Kitty Harris. Uh, she and I have worked together for 10 years at Dovetree, and, when she was at actually Texas Tech, the CRC there, whenever I first joined Dovetree. And I wanted to show everybody, if everybody can see this, this is her book, Women in Recovery. And I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time with my screen. But you can check it. You can check it out. The book that she wrote, "Women in Recovery: Finding Hope." It's an amazing book, and there's not enough things that I can say about Dr. Harris. She has helped so many people find recovery, and has been just a shining light in so many people's lives. So I can't say enough good things about her, and she's got credentials that are way too long for me to go through everything that she's done. But she you can absolutely find her online as well. She is a national speaker, and today she's going to be speaking to us about resilience, the importance of taking care of yourself. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce Dr. Harris.
Thanks, Michelle. I appreciate it. Thanks for the kind words. So I still have a couple of things to say before I get into the real meat of the talk. First of all, I have never given a speech on Zoom. I have done a million conference calls, and I have to say I'm sick of them. Thank you so much. I've done a million meetings. I'm sick of those too. And when Michelle asked me to do that, I thought, no. I mean, because one of the things about me is that I operate off the energy of the people that I'm speaking to. And so there is no energy in this computer screen. I just want you to know that. There's none. So I'll do my best, but it is not my style at all. I'd rather have 2,000 or 3,000 people and I can see the front row expression on their faces, but this is just bizarre. But I am happy to be here, and I'm happy to talk about what Michelle asked me to talk about. And I really want, there's no way to make this interactive, which is really hard for me too, but I will do my best. If you have questions at the end or whatever, I'll do my best to try to get to those. The first thing I want to say about taking care of ourselves, there's two things. Number one, I first want to say that self-care is not selfish. And that's what I want to open with, because I think so many of us in the helping profession, whether it's doing therapy or doing marketing, trying to help people, that we oftentimes look at self-care as being selfish. And so I want to dispute that today for you. So we're going to talk about the importance and the need for taking care of yourself. And so before Brent or Michelle say anything ugly, I'm going to make another disclaimer. I am not really that good at this. Quit laughing, Brent. So I am not that good at this. I've done all the research and I have all the information I'm going to present to you. But honestly, I struggle with it too. And that may be why it's a good thing for me to present on, is that, you know, I'm the one that's up till 10:30 or 11 o'clock at night on the phone with someone that's, you know, about to crash. And I have to get up the next morning at 4 o'clock to go make my spin class at 5. You know, that is not self-care. That is not self-care. But it's hard, and it's really, really hard. So I'm going to talk about three things. I want to first talk about why do we not take care of ourselves? Because I think that's one of the more interesting parts to this, is why we don't do that. And the second thing is why it is important. What difference does it make that we do take care of ourselves? And finally, I want to wrap up with talking about how do we best take care of ourselves. And those are the three things I want to talk about. Why we don't, why it's important, and what are the best ways to do it. And I hope in going through this, it'll give us a little bit of a sense of what we need to know. So why do we not take care of ourselves? And see, normally, if I was with you in person, I would say, why do you think we don't take care of ourselves? And then someone would say, well, it's because, and I would go, yeah, that's right. But because we're on this screen and I cannot see many of you at all, we will not do that. So one of the ways that's typically listed in the literature and in some of the research is that it appears that those of us that really, really feel called to help, to be helpers, to help others, we have a little bit, and don't take this bad, it's not a criticism, we have a little bit of a hero complex. I can help, I can fix, I can take care of, I can come to the rescue. And all of us have just enough of that to make us good and successful, but enough to make it difficult for us to take care of ourselves. Think about this. How many times have you thought, oh, I can help with that? Oh, I can take care of that for you. Let me take care of that for you. I spent the morning finding this woman who I love and lives in our neighborhood. Her husband recently passed away, and she needed an address to write a thank you note to someone. And she thought I might know what that address was. And of course I was like, oh, sure, I'll find it. I'll take care of it. I do have to give a speech today at noon, but I'll take care of that. And so I think we find ourselves so often thinking, I can help, I can fix, I can take care of, I can be the one that can, and how many times have you thought about this? I can come to the rescue. I can be the one that can come to the rescue. And so oftentimes we put consistently, I'm afraid, other people's needs ahead of or in place of, which is a worse problem, of our own needs. And whether it be time or whether it be effort or whether it be finding an address, that we rush in and try very hard to be able to say, I can help, I can fix, I can come to the rescue. So that's one of the first reasons that we don't take care of ourselves. Now, one of the things, and if you look at the research, it's pretty consistent with this. But then I, of course, always want to argue, and I say, well, would we be helpers if we didn't have that attitude? Would we be good if we didn't have that attitude? Would we have the heart to reach out to others? And so I think part of what we have to think about is that some of that is necessary to really fuel that passion, that we have in ourselves. And I think that's important. So the next thing in terms of why we don't take care of ourselves, I want to mention is sometimes we get so wrapped up in other people, we ignore ourselves. We get so wrapped up in other people. And it is one of those things that I think becomes very detrimental to us personally, individually, and in terms of our families. That sometimes I get so wrapped up in what Brent is struggling with, or what Melissa is struggling with, or what Taylor is struggling with, that I forget what I need to do for myself. I forget what I need to do to take care of me. And I think that that's one of the things that we have to be very careful of in the helping profession, is that we get so, and I'm going to use this word, and I'm using it intentionally, is that we get so tangled up. We get so tangled up in other people's struggles and other people's family issues and other people's lives in general, that we forget us, that we don't take care of us. And I think some of you that are whether you're in the helping profession or you're in business development or whatever, you still find those opportunities to get tangled in people's lives. And I think that oftentimes that is, that's something we have to stop ourselves. We get overly involved, we get maybe overly tangled, we get overly focused, however you choose to think about that, and then we don't meet our own needs. So the third way, the third really important issue is why we don't take care of ourselves. I think you will all be able to relate to, unfortunately, is that sometimes we are not aware of our own needs because we are too aware of others. That sometimes we don't stop and think about things for ourselves. We don't stop and look for that self-awareness that we need to take care of ourselves. And I think that there's a couple of levels of that. One, I think we get too busy, and so we don't focus on ourselves. And then the secondly is that we really don't, and I hate to say this, but we really don't have the self-awareness skills to realize we're not taking care of ourselves. Can I survive on 5 hours of sleep, 4 hours of sleep? Oh, okay, sure I can. Can I do this? Can I really show up for this family and do what I need to do, even though my family's at home waiting for me for dinner? Oh, well, that'll be okay. They'll get over it. They'll get through it. That oftentimes that sense of self-awareness that we need to have to be able to realize we're not taking care of ourselves is that we miss that whole experience of saying, where am I? Where am I in this? Where's my energy level? Where's my emotional compassion? Where is that? We're going to talk about those things in a minute. But I think that in general, we get so busy sometimes taking care of others that we don't take care of ourselves. So those are the three ways that why we don't take care of ourselves. And oftentimes we have that hero complex. Sometimes we get too wrapped up in others. And thirdly, sometimes we are not aware enough of our own needs. One of the things that in doing some of this research that I was just kind of interested in is that, I would think of therapists as being very self-aware. And yet a lot of the research, shows that that's not necessarily true, that our awareness really, is about others. So I want to move on to the second point now. And that is, why is it so important to take care of ourselves? Why is it so important to take care of ourselves? And this is one of the things, I think I heard this early in recovery, because I'm not sure exactly where it came from, but that's where I think it came from. That's where most of anything I know came from, is that if you don't have it, you can't give it away. And I'm sure now that I am sure I heard that in early recovery. I just remembered who told me that. If you don't have it, you can't give it away. And they were speaking about recovery, at the time. But it's one of the things that we look at in terms of self-care. How am I possibly going to help you if I'm not in a good place myself? You can't fill an empty bucket with another empty bucket. You can't do it. It just doesn't work. And so when you think about it, if I don't have it to give, then I can't give it. And I think so often, and I have worked with so many therapists in therapy that are just completely, I hate to say this, but burned out to a crisp. And it's like, well, I don't really know why. I don't really know how this happened. I don't really know, why I'm in this spot. And the reality of it is that if you haven't filled up yourself, if you haven't filled your own bucket, if you haven't given to you what you need to be who you are, you don't have anything to give. You do not have anything to give at all. And I think one of the things, and this is where I don't really do much therapy anymore. I do more education and training, although I still have a few random people. But one of the reasons this bothers me the most, and I guess I do try to work on it a lot, is I believe with all my heart that the individuals we work with, especially those that are in early sobriety, early recovery, that they deserve the best we have to give. If Taylor showed up in my office, she deserves the best I've got. She deserves the best I've got. And if that isn't motivation enough to really focus on ourselves and take care of ourselves and give ourselves thank you, Liesl. If that isn't, that's true. It is so, thank you for interacting with me. Thank you. That's true. Is that you deserve that. You have put your trust in me. You have invested in me financially by paying me for my services. You believe that credentially I look like a person that can help you. But if I am so depleted of what I have to give you, I haven't done you any good. And everyone that walks through my office, I think deserves that. And I really feel that even not doing therapy. I mean, I feel like if I'm going to get on this lunch and learn, that you deserve the best I've got. I mean, I wrote a 5-page speech for this, I mean, really, seriously, and so part of what I think that we have to think about as individuals, as caretakers, as therapists, as business development people, the people that we come in contact with deserve the best we have to give. And I just can't emphasize that enough. And that's after 40 years in recovery and 35 years in practice. I believe that with all my heart. And then the other thing is, and this is one of those things that's sad, but I think it's important to talk about the burnout rate in our field today. Actually, today it's probably nurses and stuff, but before all of the pandemic, is the highest of almost any field. The burnout rate in the field of addiction recovery counseling. So you ask, why is it so high? Well, it's draining. It's exhausting. It's frontline work. And I think that more than anything else, we experience, and this has become such a popular term, it was throughout the research and the literature, but we experience an incredibly high level of compassion fatigue. Compassion fatigue. I want to understand. I want to help. I want to be there for you. And if I do that over and over and over and over again, and don't do what I need to do to build myself back up, I'm burned out. I'm exhausted. I'm whatever. I got asked to do a consulting job for a hospital, and so they sent me an email, and I went and met with them, and it was so interesting. I really thought at first they wanted me to come talk about some of the addiction stuff, and how could they handle withdrawal in the ER better, or some things. I thought, no, you know what they wanted me to talk about? They wanted me to talk about compassion fatigue. And I think that one of the reasons is that they had a realization that it is so high in our particular field, it would probably be something I would know about and understand. And I did. And they talked about how their nurses and doctors and intake workers and everyone began suffering this huge amount of compassion fatigue. This is before the pandemic. We had to call everything off after that happened. But but what they were starting to see is just this kind of burnout. And so what does that look like? What does compassion fatigue look like? Now, if we were live, I would say, oh, Melissa, what do you think compassion fatigue looks like? Oh, Liesl, what do you think compassion fatigue looks like? No, but let me tell you what it looks like. So what it looks like is this. It falls in a variety of areas. Number one, and maybe the first, compassion fatigue shows up often as irritability and a lack of willingness to control your temper. I hate to say it that way, but that's it. You know, that Brent, you know about those things. So we've known each other so long, I can do that with him. So you think about this, that compassion fatigue, initially irritability, okay, an inability to control your temper, the inability to control the way you respond to people, like saying, seriously, can't you figure that out yourself? Really? You didn't fill those forms out right? You know, I can't believe you didn't do this the way I asked you to do it. You know, so you left that in the other room, and you know, every one of us has had it. We've all done it. I've done it. Oh my gosh. And so what happens is, if I'm fresh and I've done the things I need to do to take care of myself, I don't feel that way. I don't talk that way. I don't act that way. But if I'm tired, if I'm depleted, if I'm exhausted, if I'm irritable, then guess who's going to catch the end of that? That would be you, whoever you happens to be at the time. And so compassion fatigue, it is this, I want to say cloud almost, that can hang over you when you haven't, what? Taken care of yourself. Taking care of yourself. It is what we do, and what all of us do, at whatever level we do it in this field of addiction recovery, whether we're with probation, whether we're in private practice, whether we work at a treatment center, whether we work at a sober living facility, whatever we do. And I don't think that this is, I don't think this is true dramatic. What we do is hard work. What we do is hard work. I don't care what part of this field you work in, it is hard work, and it drains you. And in order to do it right, in order to do it well, you have to take care of yourself. You have to take care of yourself. It's what I said earlier. I want to bring the best I've got to you in order to help you. If I don't want to do that, then I need to go do something else. I need to go work for, a landscaping group and plant flowers. I'm probably not going to yell at the flowers. I need to go find something else to do. I need to go work at Starbucks, my favorite place. As soon as I retire, I'm going to get a job at Starbucks. And because I just want to talk to all the people that come in and find out about them. And I just think that would be so much fun. And I think it would be a lot less draining than what I do now. So I think that what we have to think about is I say all, those of you in business development, those are you, whatever you're doing, every one of us suffers from compassion fatigue at some point in our career, in our work day, in our job. It just happens, and it is what it is. Okay, last point. And this is maybe the good stuff, maybe not, who knows. How do we best take care of ourselves and become resilient? How do we best take care of ourselves and become resilient? One of the things that when Michelle contacted me to do this, first of all, I almost do everything she asked me to do. I think that's true, Michelle. Isn't that true? I hardly ever turn her down because she works really, really hard, and I deserve to show up for that too. But what I thought about when she said, I want you to talk about how counselors can take care of themselves. Well, the first word that came to my mind is my favorite topic, my largest research area, and what I love the most, and that's resilience. I love it. It is, in my opinion, the key factor in all of this field. It is the key factor, in my opinion, in recovery, is that you cannot be in long-term recovery unless you've become resilient, unless you have built up resiliency skills. I believe that with all my heart. I have studied it, I've researched it, I have published on it, and there is nothing that I feel stronger about. Nothing that I feel stronger about. And it's interesting because it's recently become more of a big field. I've got a couple of books now on it, which there weren't any books before when I was publishing on it. And the reason why I love it is because I think it tells us who we are and what we have to do to become who we're supposed to be. I think resilience tells that story for us. And so I want to talk about a few things that I know, and these I know from my own research about resilience, and I think they give us a great idea about what we do to take care of ourselves. So the first one is this. One of the key components in people that have resilience, that show resilience on a couple of scales that we use, is social support. Social support. Any of you that have heard me talk about collegiate recovery, this will not surprise you, because the single most important factor in any collegiate recovery program in a treatment center, program at a university, program at a sober living house has got to be social support. You know, I think the one thing I think this pandemic has taught all of us is that we need each other. I mean, we need each other. And you know, I had somebody say the other day, you know, I went to the grocery store not because I needed anything. I just wanted to be around some people. And that's because we need each other. And so the number one thing in resilience is being able to experience social support. So I ask you, what's your social network like? What's your social network like? Who do you hang out with? Who do you find support from? Who do you talk to? You know, who do you share things with? Who's there for you? What's your network look like in terms of social support? And you know, I want to say this is going to sound really silly to some of you, but get over it. I'm not talking about it has to be some big hotshot educational social support. Oh, well, I have all my colleague friends, and we did. No. You know, one of my best social support networks, and I have numerous, because I'm just like way a people person. That's why this is all making me crazy to be in my house, in my study, 24/7 working. I'm like miserable. But you know, one of my favorite even social support networks, the people that I used to hang out with at the gym. I love them. This is strange group of people. You would never find us having dinner together. You would never find us going to the movie together or something, but every morning at 5 o'clock, we show up. And you can tell that they're strange because nobody comes at 5 o'clock to the gym, but there's a small group, there's probably 10 of us. And we have this great little spin class, and we have this great little workout class. And I think that those people matter to me. They, you know, I don't talk about work to them. None of them really know what I do, and I prefer it that way. I was really mad because on one of our little text threads, somebody said Dr. Harris, and it made me furious because I didn't want them to know. I just wanted to be buds. And so anyway, but one of the things to think about is that social networking is not just it's not just an end result of work. Another great network is church. Somebody mentioned that on the chat. It's our Sunday school class. The other day, the doorbell rang, and my husband went to the door, and it was a couple from our Sunday school class. They didn't come in. They didn't want anything. They didn't bring anything. They just said, we just came. We're driving to everybody's house to say hello. That is social support. That is social support. Where is yours? What is yours? Where do you find that? Because to build resilience for you, to be able to deal with compassion fatigue, to be able to deal with taking care of yourself, you have got to have some good social support. And it needs to be, I believe in a variety of things. You know, the gym, that's one of my church, people that you hang out with at Starbucks, whatever, you know, those are the things that literally give you a sense of people doing one thing, caring about you. They care about you. You know, they care that you're here. They care that you care about them. You know, and so one huge thing in order to take care of yourself, and I think one of the best in all the resiliency literature, it comes up to the top, is to find and nurture and deal with social support. Is that Bob? Did Bob just come on?
Sorry, Kitty.
Hi, Bob.
Hi.
Oh, I'm so glad to see your name and hear your voice. Anyway, so social support is number one. It has to be something that you take seriously. It has to be something that you let nurture your spirit and your soul. It has to be something that you find a relief in. And, you know, and since Bob came on, Bob and I have known each other for 30 years, 30 maybe plus, but 30 years. But we don't, although we're much younger than we look, 30 years. And, you know, I would not hesitate in any crisis, in any emergency, to pick up the phone and call him. Period. He is part of my social network. He is part of a network that is there for me, that takes care of me, that allows me to feel like that there are people out there that I can turn to when I need to in order to deal with whatever issues I'm struggling with. That is what social networks look like. That is what social support is. And I think that from all the literature and the research, the reality of being able to look at that and say, this is what I need. This is what will help with compassion fatigue. This is what will allow me to grow and not be burned out and not be, you know, irritable. So I want you to think about that. And I want you to think about who your social network is. I want you to think about, secondly, what they give you so that you make sure you've got some balance there, and how often and frequently are you able to connect with them. You know, if you say, well, you know, every year we get to, I was like, no. I mean, that's fine if you do something once a year, but that is not your social network. Your social network are people that you see on a weekly basis, you know, at least a monthly basis. You know, those are the people that you know that you can pick up the phone and call and get some support. Okay, the second thing in the research, when I thought this was, you know, very interesting. So somebody just texted me, can you talk? And it's like, no, I'm already talking to all these people. So the second thing that was, I think, is really, really interesting and surprising. So I will tell you that when this came up in the research, when we ran all the stats and stuff, and this came to the second to the top, I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. The second real factor of resilience that allows you to take care of yourself is what is called structured style. That's what the literature calls it. I'm going to tell you what I call it, but it's structured style. And remember, we're talking about how do you take care of yourself? How do you not burn out? And so structured style begins with this. Number one, how do you organize your day? How do you organize your day? Structured style is how you weeks together. And what we have found in research is that structured style not only supports, but builds resilience. So how do you prepare for your day? What do? Do you have a quiet time? Do you go run, go work out? Do you sit down with your husband, wife, kids, have breakfast? How do you take care of your day? How do you start? Sorry, this phone started ringing. I'm gonna move it. What do you do? What do you do to prepare yourself to get through your day? This was so fun and interesting because you wouldn't think about this, but I love it. The guy that I shouldn't say guy, the Rear Admiral of the Navy or whatever, and this went viral. He spoke at a graduation. Must have been last spring because there's no graduations this one. I think it was last spring. He spoke at this graduation, and this is what he said, and some of you probably remember this. He said, what, and Tia, you're right, it's really important for adolescents, number one important. And so he said, what do you do what do you do every morning? This is the most important thing you do every morning. And everybody stared at him. And you know what he said? Make your bed. The most important thing you do every single day to start your day is to, he wrote a book also, Make Your Bed. Okay, cool, I'm going to get that. Thanks, David. Is make your bed. Make your bed. It's a great way to start your day. It begins your experience of structured style. You make your bed. And then you go do whatever you do next. You go exercise, you go have your quiet time, do a devotional, whatever it is. But one of the most important things about taking care of yourself is to take control of and structure your day. Because if you don't, what happens? Somebody else structures it for you. And you're not taking care of yourself. And a phone call comes in, or the doorbell rings, or your boss sends you a text message, they need something. And so that beginning to look at what kind of ways do you structure your day that gives you that sense of structured style. And the second part of that, many of you are not going to like to hear because it's going to step on some toes, but what can I say? It's in the research. Part of structured style is what? Since you can't answer me, I will tell you. Bob raised his hand to add something. I don't really see that, but whatever. So let me just tell you that what is the other part of that allows you to structure your time is the ability to set and maintain good boundaries. The ability to set and maintain good boundaries. Yeah, well, that's hard. That's hard, but it's part of structured style. You know, I'm going to set my boundaries. I'm going to do this call, and I'm not going to take that call from somebody that I think probably is in crisis, but I'm with you guys, so I'm not going to take that because I've got good boundaries. Okay? If it was one of the kids, I might take it. Or, just tell you to hold on. Michelle, I'll cover for a minute. But you've got to learn to set and structure good boundaries for yourself. What will you do? What won't you do? What's okay in your practice? What's not okay? How late will you work? How early will you get up? How many people will you see a day? How many clients will you work with? Part of structured style is organizing your day and your life around healthy boundaries. And over again in the literature, part of what we find is that not having healthy boundaries contributes to our burnout. It contributes to our compassion fatigue. It contributes to that sense of not taking care of ourselves and who we are. So the two things, and there's more, but so we only had, an hour or 45 minutes or whatever we have. But anyway, so there's more important things about resilience, and sometime maybe we'll talk about nothing but resilience. But what I want you to remember is this. Resilience depends on, well, let me just go back and put it this way. Let me frame it a little bit different. In order to take care of yourself, probably the single most important factor and important thing you can do is literally to build your resilience. It's like in recovery. People get into recovery and, bad things happen. We've all experienced troubling, depressing, overwhelming, maybe bad things that happen. And that's where resilience comes in. Do you have what it takes to bounce back? Because that's what resilience is. I mean, at its core, it's bouncing back. It's bouncing back from something that's negative or uncomfortable or frightening or whatever it is. But what we know in recovery is that in order to survive into long-term recovery, you've got to be resilient, because bad stuff happens. Bad stuff happens, and that ability to be able to bounce back, that ability to be able to put yourself back on the playing field, that ability to show back up. How many times do you think, I'm done, I'm out of here, whatever. And then you realize, I've got to show up again. I've got to show up. And so when you think about that, the best way to begin building that resilience is, number one, social support. Who have you got surrounding you? Okay? Who have you got going to bat for you? Who have you got willing to listen to your stupid dog stories? Who is there for you? Okay? And secondly, and put your life together. What do you do to set your boundaries? How do you put it together in order to be able to live a better, productive life? Okay, that takes us just about to the end, and that just leaves us some time for questions. Let me just say this. There's one more thing I forgot. Okay, there was a whole nother page. I just need to cover this really quick. So the other thing, social support, structured style, and then I forgot this, and this is really important. I feel so bad about it, but I'm going to cover it, and we'll talk fast. You have to become intentional. You have to live an intentional life. And all of the mindfulness literature and all the meditative literature talks about what you have to do to become intentional. Number one, you have to live in the moment. Like, here we are right now doing this. You're not thinking about what you have next hour. You're not thinking about what you've got to do tonight. You're not thinking about what's for dinner. It is being in the moment. Right now, right here, this is where we are. And you do that, secondly, by focusing on the day. This is the day. Yeah, the power of now. Yeah, Barb, the power of now. This is where I am. This is what I'm doing. I think those of you that are therapists that have tuned in, that's one of the most important things I can tell you. And I can tell you that from experience. If I'm in with a client and I'm not in that moment with that client, I don't deserve to have them in my office. I really don't. I don't. That importance of focusing on the moment, being in the moment. And then the other thing, this is why I had to talk about this, because this is my second favorite topic, maybe first. Resilience in this topic, 50-50. And that is, one of the ways to build resilience is to build gratitude. when you are grateful, you are resilient. When you practice gratitude, you are resilient. When you focus on what you're grateful for in your life, you are resilient. One of the most exciting things to me in the last year, maybe two, but for sure the last year, is that there have been all these scientific articles that have come out on gratitude and the impact it has on the brain and the neurotransmitters and all of that. And it really finally shows scientifically the importance of gratitude, which those of us in recovery have always known. We have always known that. Hi, Bob, I see you now. And so one of the things that you think about is that if you practice gratitude, if you practice focusing on today, if you practice living in the moment, then you have begun to live an intentional life. And that intentional life builds and continues to focus and builds on your resilience. One of the greatest things, I wouldn't trade this for anything, and if you could see what's behind me, and you can't, which is probably good, I have these stacks and stacks and stacks and stacks and stacks of books. Stacks. You know what they are? They're all gratitude journals. I have kept a gratitude journal for almost 40 years, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. I mean, really, sometimes I'll pick one up and look at it and go, oh my gosh, I forgot about that. I hadn't thought about that. Oh, that was such a special time. And so I would encourage you, as a means of self-care, as a means of taking care of yourself, start a gratitude journal. You know, what I do in mine is I just think of 5 things I'm grateful for at that moment, in that morning. I usually do mine in the morning with my quiet time. And they're silly sometimes, you know. I'm grateful that, you know, I got to see somebody's face in person today instead of on a screen. You know, I wrote that the other day. You know, I'm grateful that Sprouts delivers groceries. That, you know, and I'm grateful that I found a mask in one of my drawers. You know, I mean, I think being able to focus on those things, some of the small things, you know, can allow us. Oh, I love memory jars. Yes. So Barb just said, as a family, they do a happy memory jar. And, you know, that's one of the coolest things ever, ever, ever. And so anyway, my time's up. So I'm going to turn this. I've so enjoyed this. I wish I could have seen all of your faces and had you in person, which would be so nice, but not a possibility. But this was second best. So thank you, Michelle, for inviting me and asking me to do this. I appreciate it. I enjoyed it. And I appreciate all the good work that all of you are doing out there all the time. Don't stop, but take good care of yourselves. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Dr. Harris. We appreciate you so much. And we do have a few minutes. If anybody wanted to unmute themselves just to ask a quick question, I would love for somebody to be able to have that opportunity.
Sure.
Anybody?
I know Bob wanted to say something. Bob, are you still there?
So I know that there was a question that had been typed in here. Let me look and see. It says, do you think the element of social support is one of the reasons that group therapy is effective?
Great question. That is a great question. And the answer is yes, 100% yes. That what group therapy does is a couple of things. Number one, it gives you that sense of social support. It gives you a sense of validation for your feelings and experiences. You don't feel so isolated and alone. You're the only person that's ever felt that all of a sudden you realize other people feel that. And so the social support, the validation, and the third thing, it allows you a chance to experience feedback. You know, that sense of being able to get people not just to validate, but experience feedback. Well, that's not a bad idea, but you might think of it this way. And so, yeah, group therapy can be such good social support. And I would say if you are, you know, lucky enough to be in an ongoing group therapy situation, which might be a group at church, it might be a group at the YWCA, it might be a group at the gym, whatever. then I think you're lucky to be able to, to have that as a means of interaction. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Uh-huh.
And another question, how would you approach that subject of social support for a client who consistently says, I don't need anybody?
Right. I think that people that say that are probably afraid of other people. They're afraid of, being involved, interacting. I think that that's kind of a typical, normal, protective response. We have protective responses in our lives. We have protective factors in our lives. And I think it's just a real defense mechanism. I don't need anybody, screw you, and a lot of that's probably from being hurt. There's probably a lot of pain there. Maybe I would randomly guess maybe some trauma of being close to people and having that experience be very negative, or whatever. And I noticed Liesl typed in a question, I'll grab that if you don't mind, about what about introverts? And I say, this is the happiest day of their lives, is shelter at home, is the happiest day of an introvert's life. And that's why it's the worst day of my life. So I think with introverts, I think part of what you do, their social support networks are probably smaller and more concise, and it may be one person. It may be two people. It may not be a large group of people. And I have I'm really, this is so interesting to me. On the Myers-Briggs, I'm 50-50. I'm 50% introvert, 50% extrovert. And I can tell with that, that's so me. Put me on a screen or with a crowd and I'm there, but I just as soon sit in my study and read. But so I think with introverts you have to just be real careful, and probably their social support network is going to be smaller and more intimate. It would be my best answer to that.
Thank you. And another is compassion fatigue, casual or relational, to adrenaline fatigue.
Yeah. I think that compassion fatigue typically, I guess you could call it relational, in that if you're isolated, you don't really suffer from compassion fatigue. It's when your network becomes so large and so draining that you just can't really feel sad or feel compassion for anyone anymore, because you don't have it anymore. You're spent. And it's like, I don't know, I have no way of knowing this, but in my head, I think we're all filled up with a certain amount of different characteristics and different qualities. And I think with compassion fatigue, that what happens is that we literally, we spend all of our added resources that we have in terms of the compassion that we access. It's like, I'm done. I've given all I can give. And I tell you what, I would just say personally, I've experienced that in situations where I've just gone and gone and gone and gone, and done and done and done. And you just wear out. I worked at a psychiatric hospital for 13 years, and started a new unit, and it was an adolescent unit, and I worked 24/7. I was on call 24/7 back in the days when we had pagers. That's way before most of you remember, except for Brent. And so all I did was work. I was single. I worked 24/7. I had a dog. And finally, I just gave out and I went to the doctor. I felt so bad. And he goes, yeah, you've got mononucleosis. You have absolutely depleted every system in your body. And you've got to go home and be in bed for 6 weeks. That was devastating. But the reality was true. I mean, I think we deplete what we have to give. And there aren't as many deposits, just withdrawals. Yes, Kayla, that's perfect. All we have are withdrawal, 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 withdrawal. Nobody's depositing anything. And so that's important to think about. And that's why you have to have a social network. You absolutely have to be intentional in the way you live, and you have to be able to take care of yourself and your boundaries.
Thank you. There was another, what if the clients established social support is feeding into their negative behaviors and critical thinking errors?
Excellent, excellent question. And I think you've got to redirect. And I think you have to be really honest and say, you know, it's important for you to have people around you. It's important for you to care about people. And you are stuck in the wrong group, Bubba. And I think with adolescents, oh my gosh, that is the story of their lives oftentimes, is that they make bad choices about where they surround themselves and who they surround themselves with. And also young adults do that a lot too. But I think sometimes it's very, very important to be able to redirect where that social support is. And I'm gonna have to jump off. But so
we thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Oh my goodness, you did a fabulous job.
Well, thanks.
As always.
Okay, thanks so much. It's great to see everybody, kind of, sort of. But and I appreciate those that added in. Hey, Brent, I appreciate you. And maybe we'll do this again sometime.
Yeah, we would love it.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.